ounce.
That's more than 2.
That's extract.
This is Macy Moore from Hop Fusion Ale Works. Come and brew it. Cheers.
God, I remember that night.
That's a good thing when you remember.
Yeah, I remember that.
All right. Well, welcome back from the break. We sat here and we talked. I don't know. I guess we'll bring this up a little bit here. We talked about this at the break. Maybe we'll get into it a little bit further. Stubby seems to know a lot about this. When we brought it up in here, he was like, "Oh, yeah,
I think we need to buy one and just try it for coming for an upcoming episode."
I got $10 on that. I'll throw $10 on it. We could do that here in the studio and just ruin a bunch of beer. What we're talking about is the Casual Panache 1571F beer caramelizer. So this is some sort of
if you Google beer caramelizer, I think you're gonna come up with.
I think you should Google Casual Panache.
I don't know that
a blowtorch and some tie rod, man. You're good to go.
That's pretty much what it is.
You know what I like? It says compare with similar items. The next one is the Corksicle Chilsner beer chiller. So it's the opposite of So basically, this is like
after you use the caramelizer, then you use the chiller.
The Chilsner.
People who bought this also bought this.
So this is basically like a heat stick that you stick in your beer to caramelize the sugar in it, and I don't know, and it's like caramelized or something.
So Tyler came in a couple days ago, and he's like, "Dude, I stumbled across this video. Like, you have to watch it. This thing's insane." And it's basically like a metal rod that you heat up. They show a bunch of people sitting around a campfire, like just having a great time, drinking beer.
Do you plug it in?
No, you stick it in the campfire, like. Literally,
it's literally just a piece of
iron.
It
is literally a piece of iron that they heat up, and then you get it ultra hot. I think the video said like 1,500 degrees.
1571.
Oh, 1570. See, it's at 71. 1,500 degrees wouldn't quite do it.
Right.
It's at so you heat it up to 1,571 degrees, and then you stick it in your beer, and it froths up, and it caramelizes your beer, and I don't know what the hell it does, but it kind of intrigued me.
What's the ending temperature of your beer, though, after you stick a 1571 rod in it?
Like
hot
coffee.
as shit.
Coffee? Yeah. Steaming mug of beer.
I think it would be better if you like put it in your mouth and then pour the beer over it into your mouth.
That would caramelize the shit.
That
Definitely
you would be able to taste the caramelization as it happens. You know?
The whole process.
And
Whoa,
then,
whoa.
the same thing could apply if you're butt chugging beer. You know, you just stick it right up there and
Did he say butt chug?
butt chugging.
Butt chugging.
Yeah.
You did.
So at any rate, Stubby printed out this article for us about this, which is
And so this seems like it's a pretty legit thing that they're
beer poking. Is that what it's called?
yeah, beer caramelizing, beer poking. It seems like there's breweries. So this basically says that Austin Strange Lane Brewery made national news when they hosted their first beer poking in 2017. But unsurprisingly, Minnesota has been ground zero for the phenomenon. Unsurprisingly, why is that unsurprising?
Because you get bored when you're sitting around and snowed in. You're like, let's stick a hot poker in.
See, I would have thought Wisconsin,
Beer.
but you know,
That's true. They are the beer drinkers in Wisconsin. That's true.
you know. So,
I don't know.
Minnesota's
Maybe
famous for hot
we'll
poker
try
beer.
this sometime when we completely run out of every other thing to do. But
My thought is, what are you drinking? What kind of glass are you drinking out of? Because if it's
you could shatter your glass. Yeah.
1571
That's a really good point. Yeah.
In the video,
Solo
they're
cup.
using just glass.
yeah, they're
like
using a
pint
regular glass.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, you'd have to be pretty careful. I think that's a very good point.
I definitely wouldn't, like you said, I wouldn't use like a red Solo cup. It would probably melt.
Early Mile flask.
There you go. Yeah.
But it says dark beers like stouts and brown ales are most pleasantly affected by hot poking.
Not Yingling.
Wait, what website did you get this off
A
of?
beer website October found that where you
All this hot poking. I was
were
just
you
checking.
to inject a near
Whoa.
molten core of iron into a Yingling, it would actually suck quite a bit.
The added layer of browning makes a poked Bach taste like s'mores or dulce de leche. A poked Bach.
A poked Bach. Is that like a Twix stout?
Doesn't Bach mean goat? So a
Yes.
goat.
Yeah. I'm thinking we're going to do this in the tap room.
Gonna poke a goat in the tap room?
Here's what I'm thinking.
I think you
can
team
call
up
it the
with
Poke to
Sinacott
Goat. Yeah.
Studios on this one.
if we like hook something up where it's coming out of the ceiling and we like push it and it lowers it
It just pops it right into the beer.
all the way, just hold it right there and then we'll have to mark a spot. That's critical.
Mark a spot.
Hold the beer here
because
for the poking.
if you don't put the beer in the right spot, it could cause.
Yeah.
You know
Well,
what
the good thing
got
is you
hell-
just drop it down at 1571 and it'll mark a spot for you.
That's true.
What you got to do is you have to hook that up to a bicycle that you pedal backwards and forwards. That's like your pulley system to raise it and lower it.
I dig
Yeah.
it, man. I think you could do it. What's the charge on it? What's the upcharge on a poke?
Oh man.
Oh, I would pay an extra.
How much for the poke?
I'd pay an extra $1 or $2 for that poke.
That's what I'm thinking. Like $1-2.
Hell, you get 15 people to do it. You've paid for the $30 poker.
I mean, nobody's going to poke more than 3 times. I mean, not in one night.
See now this
Hop
is
Fusion Ale Works shut down over misunderstanding.
I was saying because this is now reminding me of Lonesome Dove when Gus would go for a poke and
For a poke.
You could call the beer the
Lori
Lonesome
Darling.
Dove.
Lord darling. Done some beer poking in my day.
That's awesome.
Wow. I
We're
just
not
can't
doing
believe
We're not doing it.
I just can't believe this thing actually
That's
exists.
awesome.
So look it up.
Yeah,
Go put some creative reviews on Amazon. That's what I'd like to see.
A blowtorch and a nail just
The reviews were very disappointing. I'd like to see some creative homebrewer reviews on there. In fact,
maybe we should have a poke challenge.
we should. I'll tell you what. I'm going to go ahead and make an executive decision here. I'm going to say if we see one of our listeners, if you put a creative review of this, and I mean something good and funny, on Amazon, and then let us know that you did it, we're going to send you a hat and a shirt.
Whoa.
and a shirt. There,
And a
there
shirt,
we
yeah.
go. That's
But Stubby's not here. I'm giving the place away.
yeah. You know.
No, this is like some drunk people made this.
Oh, it had.
They were like in a campfire with some
There was somebody
rods
drunk off
or
their ass,
something,
and
fire poke, and they were like, "Hey, you know what's cool, man?"
This started as a dare. Like somebody was like, messing around with their fire pit or whatever,
Yeah.
and had the poker, and dude's like, dude, I dare you to
Dude.
stick it in your beer. Like, and the dude was drunk enough. He was like,
It tastes
fuck
like a
it, let's
s'more.
stick it in there. And then he was like, oh shit, this is awesome.
Made everybody else do it.
I
Yeah,
think it was a dude who got caught cheating, and his wife was like, "What is this? I hear you've been doing some beer poking last night." and he was like, "Oh no, babe! Look, let me show you what it is." And he did. You heat up this thing
And
and,
it
you
totally
put it
didn't
in the
work.
beer. And,
Oh wow, we've gone off the rails on this. But
all right, so let's get back on the
I
rails.
kind of
Let's
want
talk
to
about.
poke this beer. This would be
Is
interesting.
this the? All right.
So we're discussing pale ales tonight.
Is that the coconut caramel delight you're talking about?
Yes, that's coconut caramel.
12.5%
Yeah,
from Ingenious,
it's a
Humble, Texas.
it's a big boozy beer that has. I like it. I think it's. I mean, the coconut is
that's
maybe not
good,
real
dude.
coconut, but
Oh,
What's
I
the
like
percentage on that?
12 and a half.
It's more than 2.
Y'all said that.
That's a pokeable beer, man.
in unison.
I'm telling you, it's pretty pokeable. Without the beer poker, I'd poke it.
All right, yeah, we have definitely got to figure out a way to do this.
I was thinking, oh, good, I take him home. So.
Oh yeah, you're going to be hearing about beer poking all night. Yeah.
See,
It's all right. You're already awake. I'm going to go home and wake my wife up and be like, "Hey, it's a beer poke."
I want a beer poke, and she's
She's
gonna
going
be
to have
like,
no context or anything. It's like, she's dealt with it for 22 years anyway. So.
Yeah, she's used to it. I think Sandra would like some of that.
Yeah,
Pokeable
that's
beer.
really good. Okay, so let's talk about American Pale Ale. And when we talk about make beer again, I really, this is a series where we've talked about this for a while, about covering styles that used to be standard, everyday styles that pretty much every brewery had one of them at one point. I read an article a while back that was talking about how every brewery that opened up at one point had a brown ale. That was part of their starting lineup. And now go find a brewer with a brown ale on there. It's just not a thing anymore. Now, again, I
I think Hop Fusion had a pretty damn good brown ale.
Yes, they did.
Magnolia Brown.
Magnolia Brown. I was going to call it Doc Brown, but that's a different reason.
Parmesan. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really good beer.
It was great. No, it was great, and it was well accepted, and we brewed it actually a couple times. So.
Well, and that's one of the reasons it's great to have Macy here tonight, because when you go to Hop Fusion, you do find some good old classic styles that used to be staples in breweries that are hard to find. And you go in there, you can find a pale ale, you can find a bitter, you can find a regular old stout. You know,
we talk about it all the time because you know we're home brewers, and that's the styles that you. At least that's what the styles that I started with, and that's the styles that you brew whenever you're a home brewer. But then for some reason, I know the reason, but then for some reason, you know, on the commercial side, you don't find that. And I know why it is. You just can't sell it. Like it just takes a long time. And the people that know beer, like, really appreciate it, and they're like, you know, especially home brewers are like, I really know this style, and you know, they'll actually tell you how to do it better a lot. So, but we
never walked into a brewery and been like, you know what, Macy, I like this beer, but you do it shitty. I can do it so much better.
You're the one. So, I like those styles. I mean, we brew, you know, a lot, and we brew a lot of British styles, you know, old styles. Yeah. And I think German styles have a following. With Oktoberfest coming up and everything else.
And Pilsners are becoming more and more common,
Yeah. The lager, you know, the lighter lagers, that's starting to come in style. You got a lot of German. So the other ones, though, man, like they're tough. Like, we really appreciate them, and we really appreciate the profile. We appreciate what they are. It's difficult sometimes to get people to even try them. And I don't really know why. Like, they're like, I don't really want a brown ale. I'll have an amber, but not a brown ale. I'm like, okay.
Well, kind of talking about that, it's been a while when you guys first did your alt beer.
Yeah.
Man.
I came in and I immediately Sprockets, man.
Sprockets, yeah.
Now is the time on Sprockets when we dance.
That's exactly where it came from.
But it's one of those, I immediately fell in love with that beer. And then, of course, I looked, I'm like, well, shit, I can't get an alt beer. So I went home and I brewed one. I researched it, and I started brewing an alt beer because you guys turned me on to a style that I hadn't been exposed to, and I really dug.
Yeah. One of those old styles that just kind of fell off the radar. And you know, here's the thing. Like, in a tap room, it works. And in our tap room, we would do it. We will do, you know, man, we have so many that we're working on.
Oh, my God. You have so many different beers
Y'all
on
have,
tap
what,
now.
17 beers on tap now?
This weekend we'll have.
You're going to have to add faucets to the ceiling pretty soon.
We'll have 24 beers on tomorrow.
Damn.
So, in the tap room, it works, and I think it's that people tend to want to experiment. Right? In the tap room, they feel comfortable with going, well, let me try it.
Yeah.
And they'll try it and go, oh, hey, I really like that. Not necessarily even knowing what it is. Right? So,
well, I kind of think that's how I was with an alt beer. I knew I liked German beer, and I was like, ooh, it's a different German beer. A style I'd never had. Let me try it.
Yeah. Like the British pub ale was not we just called it a British pub ale, like that's a style.
Yeah.
Because nobody wanted to drink a bitter, right? So, because they're like, oh, I don't want that. I guess this sounds outrageous. And nobody would buy it, but we could change it to a British pub ale, and people were like, oh, yeah.
Bailiwick.
Yeah, I had really fun
Bailiwick,
time,
yeah.
you know, over in London, and I really like that style, and I want to drink that. And it sold better when we called it that. I don't think, though, the reason you don't see it is if it was at the grocery store, that's a different experience.
Totally different. You're right.
Well, yeah.
And you're less likely to go, oh, yeah, I want that brown ale, you know, like you're just less likely.
See, and that used to be a standard. So I think when you get to American Pale Ale, though, I think it's a little bit different in that it's just this American evolution of things where we turn everything up to 11. and everything that was a Pale Ale before is now an IPA. Like, Dale's Pale Ale is a perfect example of a beautiful beer. I love it. Yeah. Great beer. Not a Pale Ale.
No.
It's full-on IPA, and a lot of pale ales that you get now that say pale ale on them, well, they're like double dry hopped and they're 6.5%. And you're like, well, this is an IPA, you know, and so that's why we wanted to talk about this, because the examples of true pale ales are few and far between, and you know, when it comes to home brewing, I brew things that I can't go to the store and buy. So as a result, I never brew IPAs. because you can throw a rock and hit a fantastic IPA. You can go to a crappy place like a Walmart and find 7 or 8 great IPAs on the shelf. You can't find many pale ales, so I'll brew a pale ale.
Well, see, I'm kind of the same way with especially with hazy IPAs. I don't brew it just because there are too many good examples that I can readily get. They're expensive to brew on the homebrew, side, and I don't want 5 gallons of a hazy IPA, but I'll take a 6-pack of one.
Like White Claw.
Yeah. I drink the shit out of White Claw.
You're a week or two late on that
Yeah.
one. We did a whole hard seltzer
I know,
episode.
I saw it.
Oh, did you? Okay, yeah.
So that's something that we totally skipped over on the recent happenings. There is a White Claw shortage nationwide.
We talked about that last episode.
Oh, that's right, we did.
I've
drank
no
a few
law when you're
beers.
drinking with a claw.
Yeah, I've drank a few beers since.
As Aaron Rodgers reminded us.
Yeah.
Yes. So let's
saw-
talk about American Pale Ale real quick here. Usually moderate to strong hop aroma from dry hopping or late kettle additions of American hop varieties. Citrusy hop character is very common but not required. Low to moderate maltiness supports the hop presentation and may optionally show small amounts of specialty malt character. One of the things that I was kind of surprised when I read the description on this is it makes a point to say caramel flavors are usually restrained or absent. Now, I think the reason it's doing that because as you read through this more, it makes a distinction between this and American Amber, where it's like this is the step before American Amber Ale. If you get more caramely, that's when you drift into Amber. Because I think that's one of the important distinctions between an American Pale Ale and an IPA is the caramel character in the body, where it does have to have some caramel character. You can't drop the caramel completely out, or else it becomes so hop dominant because there's just not much propping it up. But the style guidelines make sure to say that it's a restrained caramel character to it. So
yeah, definitely.
That balanced word.
balanced is exactly it. Yeah. And so what we did is
Which is a word that doesn't show up in many American styles.
Balanced.
Yeah, very few American styles are actually really balanced.
right. And that's fine. It is what it is. I think that the American brewing landscape is such a constantly changing thing where when you look at European, it is what it is. And the parts of it where it's changing, they're adopting American brewing
Definitely.
things into theirs, but when you look at bitters and you look at German beers and that kind of, they're what they are, and they have been that for a long, long time, where we're a constantly changing animal here. And that's why American Pale Ale has kind of gone away, because we just, why not add a little more hops to this? Why not kick the alcohol up a little bit?
Yeah.
Well, let's dry hop the thing. Okay, IPA. Yeah.
Well, and so that kind of we had this in our BJCP class a couple weeks ago, and that's kind of why I really wanted to do this style, because if you look appearance, pale golden to deep amber, well, there's some variety there, in the color alone, and then it goes on to later talk about the hops and how the hops can be, not only the variety of hops used, but I looked at it as, man, you can do a lot with an American Pale Ale and still keep it in style guidelines without it crossing into an amber or an IPA, but you still have a lot of differences in your hops, your caramels, your color, and it still fit that style and be drinkable, lower IBU, that type thing.
So let's talk about the kind of the pitfalls of where
I think
where
when
you
we
cross
talk,
outside of this, because I think the first thing to talk about is ABV. You really for an American Pale Ale, you really need to keep it in around that 5% ABV range. 4.5 to 5.5, really, I'd say is where. And here again, and we just tend to kind of get a little carried away with things and get higher alcohol. And when you get into the 6.5, 7% range, you're getting enough malt flavor in there. Well, now you have to up the hops, and next thing you know, you have an IPA. And I think that's what most commercial pale ales out there today are. They've just amped things up a little bit to where they drift into that IPA range. So we're gonna pass around a couple of them here. One is Sierra Nevada Pale Ale.
I mean, I think
I'll go with you and say it's the other way. And speaking on the commercial side, a pale ale doesn't sell the way an IPA does.
Oh, that's for sure.
And
absolutely.
And I think you find actually I find a lot of what is called an IPA that I think is actually a pale ale.
Really,
I find that to be more true.
what would your example of that be?
I don't want to do that.
Don't make me.
I'm not going to do that. But there's several that I've tried that I'm like, this is really. I almost can't even explain it. I get a profile from it because it's that balance. It's not, I get the malt, I get the caramel, and I get the hops almost all at the same amplitude, if I could use that word, right? So everything's kind of at the same level, and to me that's an American Pale Ale.
Yes, it's balanced out.
And you get too high, you go to an amber, you go to an IPA, or even closer. Actually, if you get the ABV really high, then you're going to a double IPA.
Right.
That's usually what turns from a pale ale into a double. So, but I see a lot of them, and I know why commercially why they're calling it an IPA. I totally get it.
Oh, absolutely.
100%. 100% get it. But it's really tastes more like a pale ale.
So, we've got here your APA, which is Near South.
And it's amazing.
It is amazing.
It is. I would like everybody here to pour this next to the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale and drink these two side by side. I've got one more can here that I put in my cooler. Just to keep it cold. Drinking these side by side is an interesting
Where's the Sierra
comparison.
Nevada? Oh, there it is. I've already had some Near South tonight, and it was delicious.
So what hops are used in this, Macy?
Amarillo,
Amarillo. Okay.
Centennial, Columbus.
Okay.
That is incredibly close to the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. It's a little bit different hop flavor, but the balance on everything is very, very similar. Whoa.
Color's
The colors.
Color is a little bit different.
Yeah,
Yours
a
is a
little bit different.
little bit darker, but I mean, just barely.
Did you poke this with a caramel stick?
Actually, now I look at it, it's not that far off.
it's not
is it?
that far off at all.
Pretty
Yeah.
damn close.
See,
That's real close,
And,
yeah.
and so let's take just a half a step back. We're comparing it to Sierra Nevada because that's the OG style. I mean,
That's it.
Sierra Nevada Pale Ale is to me the epitome of a pale ale.
Absolutely.
That you can't get any better. I mean, you can get some different pale ales, but to me, if I go to a place and there's nothing good to drink, craft beer wise, and they have Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, I'm getting that beer every time.
So I started drinking craft beer in the mid '90s or so. And, before the '90s crash of craft beer, and Sierra Nevada is one of the few that survived that. And I feel like this beer has been consistent for 20 years. Just a super consistent, really nice, well-made, balanced beer for 20 years. That still. Can you believe that this same beer still sells as well as it does?
Yeah.
All this time. I mean, that's amazing.
Well, yeah. I mean, especially if you look at how much craft beer's changed in 5 years. I mean,
Right.
you and I talked about it last week, Macy. The beers that you guys launched with a few years ago, you don't have as your core brand anymore, just because they didn't sell it, and the market has quickly changed.
People want things. They want new things. They want things to change.
Go out and make a black rye IPA. See how it does.
Well, talking about a rye
gonna be
IPA, that's something we're working on with Macy. We're gonna have a rye pale ale coming here, hopefully soon.
As a kit.
As a kid in the shop.
Cool,
Yeah,
cool.
sorry. Yeah, that 12% are starting to creep in.
That was a really good beer, man.
That really
so
was.
drinkable.
And I really like it because, like, if you caught me, out at a bar, not that I ever go to one, but if you, my mom's watching. If I went out, to get a beer, that's usually what you'll find me. You'll find, honestly, I have a Dale's. Like, it's just beer to me. Like, that's a beer.
Which is a fantastic beer.
But you know
That
what I
is
like
an
it?
IPA.
I don't have to think about it. I don't have to judge it. I don't have to wonder about it. I can just sit and have a damn beer.
You aren't smelling it. You aren't looking at it.
Yeah.
You're just you know what to expect.
It's balanced enough. I can drink 2 or 3 of them.
And that's exactly the spirit of what I'm talking about. This make beer again is, there is a certain component of you go out and you do something, and the beer itself is not the focus of it. You want to have a good beer, something you're going to enjoy, but you're not. Everything doesn't have to be about
No, it doesn't have to.
the beer in front of you all the time. The beer can just be the thing that's happening at
totally.
the same time. And so styles like this, I think, have gotten lost in that aspect. Similar to what you think of an English pub ale, like
Totally.
you were talking about earlier, where it's just
Fantastic style.
yeah, and it's just about the socializing, the relaxing, and the being out in the situation and having something nice and balanced and great.
Yep.
Like that's a perfect way of putting it that you don't have to think about.
You don't have to
just
think about
enjoy
it.
it.
I'm not
You
going
know
to judge
something
it.
like-
Just have it.
Right.
And I think now that we're getting more where everything is hazy and everything is complex, you just get exhausted.
Yep.
And so, I mean, he makes fun of me all the time because when we go someplace, it's a Kolsch or a Pilsner or something. That's what I start.
I'm with you. Yeah.
Well, I do it for two reasons. One, because sometimes I just don't want to think about a beer. But two, if you can do those styles where there's not a lot to hide behind, if you can do those well, then I'm going to trust to try other things on your menu.
Very good point. Yeah. I agree. And so what we're doing is several of us are going to be brewing our own.
I think a lot of us. I think
take
we're going to
a
have
run,
like
yeah.
8 or 9 different
Yeah, and the next
varieties.
probably the next time we do a Come and Brew It episode, not a Final Gravity one, but a Come and Brew It one, we're going to have 5 or 6 different examples here.
Yeah.
I brewed one last weekend. Nigel and Greg are brewing this weekend.
We're
I think
brewing ours this weekend.
we all are kind of starting with the Brew Your Own Sierra Nevada Pale Ale clone as a guideline to go by. In that we're talking
There's a
about
clone.
well, it was a clone recipe that was in Brew Your Own magazine.
He's like, damn, that could have saved me so much trial and error.
On a side note here, has anybody else drank these side by side now?
Which one's the?
Yeah, the South Side and the Sierra
yeah.
Nevada.
They're
Crazy how close they are.
They're
aren't they?
really good.
We actually get kegs of Sierra Nevada. We do.
And you just put the thing on it, yeah.
Just real quick before anything happens to the tape, that's a lie.
Oh wow, it seems like we lost audio for about 20 seconds here.
like the hop flavor is different, but the balance
Yeah.
and the basic
That's how it should be.
construction
Yeah,
of the
there's
beer.
more hop character to the hop fusion.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
Okay,
they're
now-
fresher hops.
Well, that and maybe, but could it be because it's a little warmer? I mean, temperature-wise, I think
Well,
it's
he
been
didn't make
sitting
a
there
starter
minute, so-
either, so
Well, then you know what?
That's
That's why it's just a little
There's
more.
no
I think
starter.
Totally
But I
right.
think if they were the same temperature, I think they'd be pretty damn close.
Yeah,
well,
I think you're right.
I think that yours has a little more complexity to the hop flavor because there's more different kinds of hops. Where Sierra Nevada Pale Ale is straight up Cascade. I mean, it's just
yeah.
like the best example of Cascade. There might be a little something else in there, but the Cascade's driving the bus.
Well,
You
so,
know,
so the story.
I've never done this with the Sierra, so thank you guys. I honestly haven't.
It's
And
pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
It
pretty
really
cool.
is a testament to what a great example of a American Pale Ale yours is.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So the story, from what I've heard, as far as Sierra Nevada and the Cascade, is when what's his name, Ken Grossman, is it?
Yes, Ken Grossman,
When Ken Grossman was starting Sierra Nevada, Cascade was abundant, and he was able to get a shitload of Cascade cheap. So that's why he went with Cascade, which has now turned into just a very classic American hop. Like that's very OG, old school. Like so,
It's such a versatile, wonderful, easy to use hop. In my opinion, it's a nice medium alpha acid content, and just you can use it all by itself, and it's a really wonderful hop flavor. You just can't go wrong with it. To me, it's like EKG or SOTS or some of those classic hops that I like to use all the time. Just that all by itself, just a wonderful hop that.
Yep.
Okay, so
I've done single hop IPAs with it, all the way through boil, all
Yeah.
the way through whirlpool, dry hop, everything, and it's a solid hop, man. Like you can't go wrong with it.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's the fun thing. You're talking about that. We're talking about the hops and how the Sierra Nevada has the old school Cascade. You guys said you use some Amarillo, Amarillo in yours. I'm going to go the other end with my pale ale.
Well, before we get into that,
Okay,
let's
okay.
talk about the grain bill real quick.
Okay,
Because
yeah,
the grain
definitely.
bill
Yeah,
is
definitely,
where we
definitely.
started. That was the kind of the guideline that we were going to
Yeah.
use based on this clone recipe of Sierra Nevada.
Which it was what 10.25 pounds.
It was like 10 or 11 pounds of base malt.
Anybody got a
and
pen?
a pound of Crystal 60. All
It's
four
being
at a
recorded,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
and a pound of Crystal 60 for a 5-gallon batch.
Yeah.
So what we're
Crystal
looking for
60?
is
60.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was kind of surprised by
Yeah.
that myself. I thought it was going to be 40.
I thought 40.
So that's what I ended up using, and mine was 40. But basically, you're looking at base malt with a little bit of caramel malt,
I'm
and
gonna
that's
use
it.
20.
That's it.
If you're overcomplicating your grain bill on an American Pale Ale,
That's it. 2-row.
2-row
C60.
and C60 is what the
It's one of those. You say
I
that.
think you could use Cara Munich probably if you wanted to, or just some sort of caramel malt in there to give it a little bit of caramel body.
Well, it's one of those. You say that as far as color. You know how you think the Crystal 60 might be too much, but really looking at the guidelines, your SRM's 5 to 14.
The color's not what I'm concerned with.
Okay.
It's the flavor.
The caramel flavor. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, true. The
Now-
60 is going to give you.
Now, personally, I just tend towards the lower caramel malts. I just don't like to use too high of caramel malts because I feel like the flavor gets too strong and you get a little bit too much into that dried fruit and kind of raisin flavor. I just want to add a light caramel note normally when I'm using caramel malts. So I typically just stay 40, 20, 10 kind of.
And if
tell
you
you we
want
use-
more caramel, then you just poke a 1571 degree
Yeah.
Poke a booger in it.
thing right in there.
Don't go 1572. If you
how
do
big
that,
of a
That's
poker.
that's
Screw it all
gonna
up.
that's
Yeah.
gonna burn your beer.
Right.
71's the.
That's going to be the
1571.
biggest takeaway I have
So
tonight.
Macy, you looked at me like you have a more
1571.
complicated grain bill than that.
Not much. I mean, but we use 40.
40. Okay, that's what I use.
But,
too,
we,
yeah.
but to add a little character to it, it's a little Cara Munich too as well.
Cara Munich too. Okay. So
and Cara Munich 2 is in that 60 range, if I remember correctly. It's like 50 to 60. There's not
I
never
think
an
it adds
exact
some
on it.
character to the malt. So
kind of on those notes with my grain bill, I went with the Munton's Planet. It's something I'm big on right now.
Now I use the Planet also, yeah,
So I think we all use the Planet.
Yeah.
because that's all I use lately.
Tyler
we have to
Tyler
save
used
the
it. Tyler used it.
Tyler
I
used it
know.
too? All right.
I know Greg and Nigel used it. Sandra and I both used it. So I think we. So that'll be
is
really
all our
interesting. We
Planet.
all
I'm not
use the
gonna use it now.
exact same.
You're
we
off
all
the
use
planet.
the same base malt, or pretty much it. But I went with
are y'all
Crystal.
cycles all together too?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Sweet.
So I went with the Crystal 20, but
Okay.
but I also used some Victory because I'm thinking the Victory was going to be a little bit darker, so I went with the 20 to color wise. I feel sometimes American Pale Ales can be too caramely. You can
Yes.
get too much caramel in it, so
I
that's
agree.
that's why I went with the 20. But I think the Victory was going to add it like, Victory, Cara Munich too. They're kind of very similar, so. That's the way
have you
I
brewed
went.
yours yet?
We're brewing ours Sunday. I guess we have to.
Okay, so what I did.
Doing it now.
Well, it's one of those. Tomorrow we're judging beer, so we got to brew it this weekend. So it'll be Sunday.
What I did was, I think on the 5, because I did a 12-gallon batch, so I think the 6-gallon version of it was 11 pounds of Planet and a pound and a quarter of C40. And I was like, "Damn, this is dark, dude." It's on the upper end. I think it's still within spec for it. It's not quite an amber, but the Planet is darker
Yeah.
than normal pale malt is. So it got kind of dark. I think looking at it and tasting, I think maybe I would have dialed that back to like 3/4 of a pound of C40 instead of 1.25.
See, and that's what I did. I went with 10 pounds Planet for a 5-gallon batch. 10 pounds of Planet, 12 ounces of Victory, and then the 12 ounces of the Crystal 20.
And the Victory's going to give it a little bit of like a bready, biscuity kind of flavor.
I was
to it.
looking
I
to
can
give
see
it a
that.
little more dimension, a little more flavor than just a Planet or pale malt and a little bit of Crystal. So that's why I went that way, and that was totally just a spur of the moment. As I was pulling her grain bill, I was kind of writing mine
He
in
was
my
cheating. No.
head. No, I went different than you. So it really was one of those. I just kind of pulled it out of my ass in a way as I was in the grain room looking at some of my options, because I thought about maybe throwing just some regular Munich or maybe even some.
You have a grain room?
Yeah,
It's like a chef, a master chef looking in the pantry.
Does not everybody have a grain room at their house? Like that's.
I wish we had a grain room at the house.
We,
I mean,
we have a grain shelf.
It's
with-
empty, but we do have
a
one.
little bit of some base malt, but
We have some nice containers.
so Sandra, what did you do with your grain bill?
I did 10 pounds of the Planet, 1 pound of the Irix Rosewood,
Which is
I think it's a 40.
That's like a 40, isn't it? Yeah.
And I did a pound of Munich.
Okay, so you put some Munich. The Munich, Vienna are going to be along the same lines a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I looked at the brewing classic styles, and they suggested maybe a little bit of Munich. I'm like, that sounds like a good idea. Why not?
I can see that. I've done that with IPAs before, where it's just like all base malt and some Munich in there just to give it a little bit of character. I think we're all going to be a little bit surprised at what the Planet Malt does to it.
I'm a little scared now that you said it's darker. Like,
It's definitely darker. Yeah, it is.
Beer
Apparently,
Smith.
y'all are all going to be the same.
We're like, yeah, it's supposed to be dark.
And I was looking
We're
at
on that.
Beer Smith and going, that looks a little dark on their little color thing, but
Well, see, that's
Which
the
is
thing
very
is
accurate.
Planet, yeah, it is very accurate.
accurate.
But the Planet Malt's not in Beer Smith that I know of.
No,
yet.
it's
so I
not,
just
which-
use Maris Otter. It's darker than Maris Otter.
See, and
Wow.
we actually looked on. I guess I went to our website, the TX Brewing website, and looked to see what we had the Lovabond listed, and I manually entered, half-ass entered from the information I had, Planet.
no, he didn't.
So
I did. He told me what to do.
We all assume that you're doing it all anyway.
This is implied.
until it comes to the brewing end of things, and I'm making her brew her own damn beer. This no.
Oh, crap.
Uh-oh.
So Macy has here, it's Swifty from Real Ale. It's another different American Pale Ale. It was on that lighter end of color.
Yeah, so this is one to me that starts to drift. Now, the ABV is only 5.2, so it's within it. But to me, this is so hop forward
I agree.
that I think you start to drift out of that American Pale Ale category. It's there's not much caramel malt to it. It's a very light body, so the bitterness stands out a lot and builds up on your palate. It feels like it's dry hop to me.
So maybe that's something we need to discuss, the difference between a pale ale and a session IPA.
Yeah, see, that's what this tasted
Yeah,
like.
that's
That's exactly what this
I was going to
Yeah.
compare that to.
This-
And this is a
Tyler's.
really, really good session.
It's great.
IPA.
I love it. Yeah.
However, session IPAs don't sell.
I think founders
Go
would
Easy
disagree.
doesn't sell?
Session IPA? Goose is no longer a session IPA.
They
just don't sell.
All Day IPA is the single best-selling beer that Founders has ever put out. So,
Yeah.
and this is better.
This
than
is really
it,
good.
I think this is better than that. Yeah, I really like this a lot.
So this one here we have is St. Lupulin. It's an extra pale ale, and it's by Odell.
What is that,
So I
Rosé?
looked it up when
Yeah.
I bought that one, and the IBUs come in at 46, which the upper range on pale ale is 40. So it's really more towards that IPA.
And it's also a 6.5 ABV, so it might
too.
be on the.
Right.
Well, actually,
it is extra.
Well, extra pale ale. So that's a way to sell pale ale and pretend it's not an IPA.
I really like this Swifty.
It's really
Yeah,
good,
it
isn't it?
really
I really
is.
like it a lot. But I drank
forgot-
it and I thought this is exactly the kind of beer that I want to talk about, because this is when you go to try and buy an American Pale Ale, this is typically what you get now.
Which is not.
Right, it's not an American Pale Ale.
Right.
It's a great beer, fantastic beer. I would buy this
really
again any day. Yeah, but if you're looking for an American Pale Ale,
Here's how I know it's different, though. In this beer, I'm trying to figure out what the hops are, and I'm trying to figure out what the grain is, and I'm thinking about the damn beer. And in Pale Ale, I don't have to think about nothing.
right? No, you're right. That's 100% right. And that's the old classic. That's the make beer again. There are these old ones that it's just in your brain already. It's in your lizard brain.
Yeah, I don't have to worry about
Yeah,
it.
like, oh, I know this. Okay, now I can get on with my life and just enjoy this
we
beer.
can talk about insurance. We don't have to talk about beer. I
Mike
like it.
left. Do we have stacks of cups here? Dude?
Sandra just discovered those cups.
Yeah, you just grab this.
Well, they were hidden.
They were hidden.
Secret
They were
cups.
hidden behind
Before
our
everybody
massive
came in,
thing.
I cleaned the table off, which I don't think we had done in about 3 years. And I put stacks of cups everywhere for everybody so they would be so proud of me.
It is the cleanest it's ever been in here.
Ever since the flood, when it was all brand new.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, we get
So
to try
here
another.
again,
Yeah.
God,
That one's a little.
I'm going to come back and do this every week.
you should, man.
so much more funner than what I do.
Does this one seem a little closer to a pale ale than the Swifty to you?
To me, it does only because there's some caramel in the body.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is.
And it's
But it's
and
a
I
little
think-
big.
Well, but I think that the
a
caramel
little big, but-
the caramel balances the higher IBU
Yes.
to
Yeah.
to make it a little more drinkable.
And
you know.
that's a really good point because I was going to go
That's it.
back to the recipe formulation on what we're doing.
yeah.
Mine ended up at I think 37 IBUs, which was a little bit higher than I wanted, but I had a pretty substantial caramel flavor in the body, and I thought it's going to need that. I don't want this to be sweet at
This
all.
is good.
I like it. Yeah,
I like that
it's
a
real
lot.
good.
Now that's closer to what I would think of a pale ale.
But see,
It's just a little bigger, is all. It's
I think we're quickly finding though we've tried 4 different pale ales, and they've all
Let's
been.
try 6.
Oh, we got several more,
Oh, yeah.
Macy. But it's one of those we've already tried 4, and they're different. They aren't hugely different, but there is very much a difference in these beers.
oh, absolutely.
So which
they're all over the place.
Which I think again, going back to what we're doing, really excites me because we can. I think we're going to be able to do a lot
Y'all
of
are
things.
going to be the same.
It's one of those, there's a lot of, I mean, you go through the guidelines and there's a lot of wiggle room on hops and a lot of wiggle room, malt characters. So there's not anything that says you must use this to brew it like some of the other styles have.
No, totally.
But I think the key, what it boils down to when we try them and when we brew them is that balance.
Yes.
And when I was going through and putting my hops in, I tried to make certain that I paid attention to the starting gravity versus IBU ratio. And when I did my first recipe on it, I looked it up and went it came up extra hoppy. I'm like, that's not what I want at all. That's
Right.
I
That's
mean,
exactly
it was
what I was doing too. I was trying to just stop myself from drifting into that.
yeah, and
extra
it
hoppy
hit
territory.
on color, it hit on starting gravity, it hit on IBUs. It was all within range, but the balance wasn't there according to the beersmith. And so I scaled back the hops a great deal to
Right.
get it within that balance.
And that's the world we live in, where we're so used to certain things that we design it a certain way and go, wait a minute, I'm already over where I should be. I had 2 pro brewers at my house while I was designing and brewing this recipe, and both of them were trying to push me to put more and more hops in it. I'm like, see what y'all are doing? You're trying to make me make an IPA.
and here we go.
Yeah.
And
What are you going to dry hop it with? I'm not going to dry hop it. You're going to make a pale ale and not dry hop it? I'm like, yeah.
You're going to make anything like an IPA-ish and not
Right.
dry hop it? That's blasphemy.
And it's one of those that's the thing, Mike is a hophead and sometimes he brews things and he's like, man, this is way overly hoppy. And I'm like, did you keep in mind that balance number? I mean, there is a certain, it's very easy
That's
to
one
look
of the
up.
things I like about Beersmith is the visual representation with the sliders there, where you can see where my ABV is here and my bitterness is here, and if one's on the high end, the other one needs to be on the high end. But if one's on the low end, you got to back off the other one too, because that relationship is so important.
Right, and I've actually downloaded the chart so I can pull it up and go, because I'm more of I gotta look on the graft and see where it falls, and then I'm like, okay, then I gotta make adjustments. But
And that's another thing to keep in mind too, is during your brew day. The one thing I'll say about the Planet Malt, my efficiency is crazy with it. So like I had like 86 or 87% efficiency on this. I never get. That's way higher than I normally get. And
Really? Huh.
I normally average like 75%.
Well,
pretty
no,
consistently.
that you noticed a lot higher.
10% difference is crazy high.
That's, yeah.
And I have to make sure. I've almost never do this. I poured a gallon of water in my boil kettle to bring my gravity down where it needed to be, because I don't want to drift into that high territory. You get into the 6.5, close to 7% ABV. All of a sudden, you're out of pale ale, and so.
and that throws everything else
Throws
out of balance.
everything
You got to
else
adjust
out
the
of balance,
recipe
yeah.
the entire way through.
Right.
So what we're passing around right now is I decided to, because it seems like I'm the gatekeeper of the pale ales tonight.
You are.
I decided to kind of throw you a curve. We've had 4 pretty traditional ones. This one's from Turning Point. It's Every Day I'm Nifflin', and it's a hazy. They use it says what's it, Simcoe and Vic Secret, it says on it, I think.
So
this is
a
kind
minute ago, I was talking about I had 2 pro brewers at my house while I was doing this, and they were both trying to talk me into making it more hoppy.
Yeah.
One of them was a Turning Point brewer. So
well, James Harrington,
Yeah.
yes, exactly.
James. What's up, baby?
And see, for me, I've had this beer before, and I really like this beer.
That's a hazy IPA. That's not a.
But it's a session hazy IPA because it's only 5%.
Okay.
But
6%.
Oh, it's 6. So, well, for Turning Point, that's a pale ale. I mean,
Well,
this is
he told me. He said, "Let me grab something low ABV." He pulls out a 7% IPA. I'm like, that. My strike water's not hot yet. I'm
Well,
like,
that's-
this is what we're starting off with. He goes, "Yeah, that's the lowest I brought." All right, let's do this.
Here we go. So especially with Macy, your funny story. I had a customer today. They came in and the wife, the husband was telling us how the wife had tried Feisty Redhead
Here we go.
and really liked it.
I love that beer.
So she bought a 6-pack.
Delicious.
They're out on the boat and
She fell in the water.
she's just knocking these beers back and before.
Was her name Natalie Wood?
Ooh.
Too soon.
Too soon
too
on that one? I'm
soon.
so sorry. Wow. Jeez.
But before the husband realized it, she's shit faced drunk in the back, and then he looks at the can and realizes, oh damn, it's what 8.9.
8.67.
See, he
8.6.
did a little beer poking that day.
Yeah. But
By the
so
way,
it's
if
one of
you're-
those like I totally get that turning point. Or I used to that was the hot fusion syndrome. Every time I went in there, I'd drink big beers that drank really easily, and I'd come out shit faced.
Well, because you got this big mash tun. And there's all this room in it.
Giant igloo.
You got your big ass igloo that you just got to
Huge
fill up.
igloo that you had
And so
custom
you
made.
just keep putting grain in it until it's full.
By the way, if you're playing the lotto at home, it's 15, 71, 8, 6, and 7.
Every
We've
day
had,
he's
we've had
nickel and-
1571, and now it's 8.67 for your
Oh, there you go.
great lotto numbers. Is all I'm saying. Yeah.
But this one. So talking about hops, I walked out to get this beer. What hops did you say you used on yours?
So I went super traditional with mine. I
Okay.
bittered with Magnum, and I went Cascade the rest of the way.
Okay.
Magnum is the shit for bittering.
So
That's all. I bitter with Magnum in every beer, almost every beer that I brew.
So that's very interesting because I've yet to brew mine. I haven't even put it into Beersmith, but I know up here what I'm gonna do. I have my recipe in my
It should
head.
go well.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this is gonna be a great brew day Sunday. Smart ass. But
Andrea, calm
but
down.
I
Timing is everything, right?
Yeah. I'm gonna bitter with Magnum at 60. And to get me those IBUs, but I'm gonna go almost more because this is where I lean the Turning Point style of hopping. I'm going to go late edition, almost hazy IPA hopping. I'm going to go real late edition, maybe flame out, and I'm going to use Zythos. So Zythos is a hop blend that gives you both a piney but a citrusy. So I'm kind of playing off the old school, Cascade hop, but I'm also going to use some of the Zythos, and then we got a bunch of stuff at the house. I hadn't decided what else I'm going to use, but because we got a ton of hops at the house.
Because they have a hop room.
Yeah, next to my grain room.
Well, let me tell you about my secret weapon, and I have no idea how it's going to turn out. But I'm going very traditional. By the way, I also use Magnums. Just want to put that out there.
Magnum or Magnum?
357 Magnums.
And I'm
Yeah, that's because you can tie them off and use them 2 or 3 times, right?
ding ding
not-
ding ding ding.
Not really.
That's my brother from another mother right there. But I'm going to use the Columbus hops that are growing on the side of my house.
Oh, nice.
It just at the end, just because. So that's
Cool,
my
cool.
secret weapon.
That'll be great.
It'll probably taste like grass or something.
It's going to be
but,
really good.
Yeah.
Are you going to dry them out, or are you going to use them wet?
Well, they'll probably be vacuum packed by the time I'm ready to brew. So.
Okay. Good. That's interesting.
I'm picking them in the morning. I went and checked on it.
It's worth
today,
noting
and
that one will probably be the first beer of yours that I've ever tasted.
Really?
I don't think I've ever tried a beer.
I don't think I've ever had any of your beer before.
You don't
Yeah.
share.
I used to brew a lot
He's
more
had a
than
bunch
I do
of them.
right
This is
now.
the first one he's going to taste.
Well, what?
He spit out all the others.
Touche, Mason.
No, I was thinking recently. I'm like, I don't think I've ever had any Eric's beer before. He never brings his beer.
Yeah,
in.
I kind of turned into more of a connoisseur the panache or whatever it was.
It's a panache.
Hanging out at Macy's place and stuff, like that. Going over to Hop Fusion and really, tasting good beers.
Because we make beer.
Yes. But
I keep trying to get him to make a seltzer, and he just won't.
Oh well, that's what I was gonna. That's what I was gonna say. I was gonna do a hard pale ale seltzer as well. So
Of course,
see how that goes over.
I
All
know
right,
that.
so we got the omission going
There's no
around, which
law
is
with
the
the clock.
gluten-free.
Whoa! I did not know that. I poured too much.
Yeah.
Macy likes all of his gluten.
Yeah,
So
can I get mine with extra gluten?
So this is something Sandra texted me. She was out shopping for our pale ales today, and she's like, "Should I throw the guys for a loop and bring them a gluten-free beer?"
Now,
and my
to-
thought was, "Hell yeah," because I've never had a gluten-free beer. So
To be fair, says crafted to remove gluten. So this could be
Not
using
gluten-free.
not gluten-free, but gluten
using
removed.
Clarity Firm,
The
which
Clarity Firm, yeah.
which brings it below that
It
threshold.
brings it below the threshold, so where you can call it
Gluten
gluten-free,
light.
but the gluten was in there at one point. So the gluten gets in there, does its thing, body shot, jab, and then gets out. And
That's what gluten does. Actually.
that's not bad.
It's not bad.
It's not great.
It's a little caramely
Yeah.
for the.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
For a
There's
pale
definitely
ale.
some caramel sweetness,
But,
But
it's
it-
gluten-free caramel.
but
And it
but
ends
it's
kinda bittery.
darker. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
it is
darker
darker.
as you can see here. Than
You
some
know,
of the others we've had.
Upon a second tasting, it's got an odd,
Lingering.
aftertaste to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, the bitterness really lingers on this one.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
the gluten chemical.
Normally the gluten would cover that up, and
Is that
without
what
that
that does?
gluten. Do you have a bottle of gluten over there that we can pour into this?
Spike it with our own gluten.
I'll say this: if I couldn't drink regular beer because I had celiac or something like that,
I would drink
I
seltzer
would drink this.
or cider.
I would drink this if I couldn't drink anything else.
It's,
It's a
I
touch
could get.
sweet and caramely.
I think
and
I got get used to it.
Right? Like I wouldn't not drink it.
it's almost like a.
It's not bad.
What do you think of this, Brandon? It's almost like a sweet tea beer. A little bit like a
I can kinda
lightly
see that.
sweet tea beer. Yeah.
I think Macy likes it more
like
than
you-
he's
yeah.
willing to admit. He does. He hates to admit that he likes a gluten reduced beer.
Well, I get the impression
Removed.
Macy had the same reaction I did. Like at first, oh, that's not as bad as I was expecting, and then you drink more of it, and you're like, oh, that's
Yeah.
kind of bad.
That
It wouldn't be bad,
aftertaste is
yeah.
what I think most
Yeah.
people think hops taste like.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's more like a tea finish for me.
I
What
can't. I can't put
Without
into
sugar.
words what the
like
aftertaste
one
is.
spoon
there.
of
It's
sugar
just
that you stirred into the
an odd, almost like metallic.
breaking it down into tea.
Huh? So
levels.
so this one, reading the description here, this one's going to be a little bit different.
Hopefully,
Well, it
How much
it
gluten is in
says,
that one?
So this one's community
It's fully gluten.
community
Full-
yes sir pale ale.
it's got extra gluten.
But
Yes,
it
sir.
says on here that the hops that they use Eureka, Lemon Drop, and Citra. Okay. But it says
That's
earthy
weird.
hop character. Well, I don't think earthy with any three of those hops.
I'm not familiar with
maybe
Eureka, but
Yeah, I say
Yeah, maybe the Eureka.
They
but-
didn't
but-
want to use the word dank.
I like a beer described as dank.
yeah,
So-
but knowing Jamie, I could see him staying away from that word. Now, community is one to me that they when they say something is a classic style, they're normally dead on. Like
Yes.
his
Yeah, they
wit
get the
beer,
balance right,
His
I
wit
think, at
beer
Community.
is dead on, exactly wit beer.
So this will be the second community we had, but before the show started, we had their medical grade haze, which was a hazy IPA, and I
And
thought
that
it
was good, too,
I
yeah.
thought it was really damn good. That's one that really surprised me.
It has a herbal character to it, don't you think?
That's definitely on the.
Well, it says here, distinct earthy hop character and notes of fresh mint and tropical fruits.
I get mint for sure.
I get like a pepper.
Like this tastes like Thai food.
Oh yeah.
I think it says that on the can.
Like
Okay, so it's
in the,
pretty fresh. It was canned less than a month, or a little over a month ago.
herbal
so.
and minty.
in the nose, and then the when I followed up with the
That is
sip,
Thai-like.
I get like
I guess
black
that-
pepper.
Oh
This
yeah,
Yeah, a
would be
little
great
bit
with
of
some
pepper.
Thai food.
yes.
It's delicious.
It's good.
Unfortunately, I don't know that whether I can comment on it being a pale ale because I think the last one wrecked my palate a little bit. No, it was kind of real bitter, and the bitterness is just lingering. Yeah, there we go.
Go back to the Sierra Nevada.
Cleanse it with
Get
some
the
Sierra
Sierra
Nevada.
Or even better. Here we go.
Go back to the near south. And
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. What I'm kind of discovering with some of these pale ales is that it seems like they're using the words pale ale to say it's not quite an IPA that all these IPAs that you've been saturated with. It's like a toned down IPA,
But
not
then-
really a
But
pale
then
ale.
it is an IPA.
But it's like it's just
3
like
years ago,
a
this was an
toned down
IPA.
IPA. Yeah,
3 years ago, this was an IPA.
Well, let's see. They have it as 32
'Cause it smells-
IBU and
That
5.2
doesn't smell like a
ABV.
pale ale at all.
So I mean, 5.2 and 32 IBU. That's very much
The-
in
the
the
thing is- the
pale
thing is
ale
that there is-
range.
That's
but
in the range, yeah.
There is no measurement for hop flavor, though.
But we're talking
Exactly.
about, make beer again. We're talking about going back to what, like a, when you pull
classic
out the
example.
Sierra Nevada
Yeah.
and you're like, this is the classic example of a pale ale. I just don't see that this is in that going
And
back.
I think it's a flavor thing. I think the flavor is so exotic
it's all about
on
the
this.
hops It's all about the hops in these to me.
So I wish we could have gotten an example.
And this is a lot.
A few pounds of C40 in that, though, near Red Palo.
I'm telling you,
Well,
I,
that's-
I would absolutely buy this. This is a fantastic
really good.
beer.
I mean,
Yeah.
no knock on the beer. I'm just talking about the, going back to,
Yeah,
to
true.
your,
Yeah. Well,
going
see,
back to your roots kind of on these
again,
beers.
that's why I started to say I wish I had an example. Sandra and I were down in Austin a couple months ago, and it was Austin Beer Works. What do you remember the name of the beer? I ended up buying a 6-pack of it, but it was more of a Citra Pale Ale, so it was a little less Sierra Nevada. It had that grain bill, but it had more Citra hops, so it was a really nice. It made me think, man, the diversity of pale ales, because to me, when I drink it, it was a pale ale. It just had that more citrusy hops.
Well, see that, and I
Which
think
is kinda
that
what
the
I'm going for
distinction
on
is
mine.
kind of what Macy was saying earlier between session IPA and APA. There's no measurement for hop flavor, and when the hop flavor gets to be dominant in there, and the malt really takes a back seat to it, rather than the two of them being balanced out, I think, in my opinion, that's the distinction.
Yeah. Well, this can, this Yes Sir Pale Ale from Community, this can, I don't know if you can get this on. Here it comes. But it's got, it says Yes Sir, and it's got a hop, like, a hop cone right on the front. So it's telling you up front, like, this is a hoppy,
But
hop forward pale ale, and it really is hop forward.
it definitely is hop forward, and I just think that the exotic flavor from these new hops is such that it takes it out of that American Pale Ale
Right.
realm.
And that's kind of my point.
You have to
I
think
was-
about this beer.
That's the thing. I'm telling you, that's the thing.
You're right about that. You're 100% right. I knew
If
we
you
brought
drink it
this
and go,
guy
I
in
wonder
for a
what that
reason.
is.
Yeah.
That's no longer a Palo.
Yeah, yeah. So I think we've adequately let you listen to us drink beer for a while now. Do we have another one? Mike's about to pull out another one.
There
I have
is-
like 5 colors.
Well, and see, I think that's.
Remember, we can keep drinking once the microphones are turned off.
Yeah,
It's,
we still do have one more APA. I just picked it up.
Let's
It's-
do one more. Let's do one more. I don't want to have people just listen to us drink for too
No,
long.
but it's still constructive because we're talking about the difference.
the wide
it's
variety
wide
of
range.
differences of whether we consider it a pale ale or not. A lot of these, by style guidelines, IBU, ABV, those type things, caramel presence, are within that style. The hop flavor might come through a little
Basil.
strong.
Yes.
basil.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
it.
you're right. There's
It just hit you what that was.
Like 2 a.m.
Sorry, I
Basil!
That's exactly what would have happened if I hadn't nailed it. Now I'd be laying in bed like
Basil.
can't go to sleep.
Did I have pizza? I don't remember that.
It tastes like chewing on a fresh basil leaf. That's what it is.
But I think it's all the microbreweries out there trying to make a mark on the tried and true, and
I get it.
yeah, I get it, but is it really a pale ale? Like
Well, so we keep saying that it has high hop flavor, has a lot of hop flavor. Right here under flavor on the style guidelines, usually a moderate to high hop flavor.
Right.
Yeah, but you follow that up and it says
Often showcasing a citrusy American hop character, although other hop varieties may be used.
and I think that's what's lacking on some of these is that it's missing that supporting malt character.
That's exactly right.
it. Yeah, I think
agree
that's
with you
what it
100%. Yeah.
It's the balance.
And it's the balance. And when the balance gets to be so much to one of them where you have to think about it, again, I think Macy nailed it.
I think you're dead on. That's a brilliant way to.
Where you're like, what is that? Then you're out.
You know, you've derailed your conversation. You're not
Well, see,
drinking a pale ale. You're talking about your beer. You know.
I can get on board with that. I think if you ask yourself once, what is that? Okay. But if you're starting to ask more than once, okay, what is this other?
And in the middle of a conversation, you just shout out basil.
Basil.
Yeah, right.
Like an asshole.
And you haven't used enough tomato sauce
at that
and
point,
cheese.
Then perhaps you're out of style.
Yes. Maybe you should have over-pitched so you get that meaty flavor.
So we've got an Epic Brewing APA here, and I'm going to tell you right off the bat, that's an old
It's
an old can
Yeah.
that it's not in its prime.
Did you know that from drinking it?
Yes. Yep.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you know Brandon?
You can taste
Drink
it.
that. You can't taste that?
That's amazing.
Oh yeah. 410 19.
The beer is amazing.
That's really good.
It's good. It's old though. You can taste that it's old.
It's 5 months old. So yeah, it has a little bit of age on it. But
5 months on a hot shelf is.
I think once you oxidize beer, it helps to balance it.
It accentuates the malt.
we do have one more example, but I think we can drink it off air. It's more of a British. So that's the other thing we're talking about.
Now we're gonna go to British.
Well, we're talking
No,
about
we're not
American.
gonna- we're not gonna go to
No,
British,
no, we aren't. We're talking American
spent a lot
pale
of
ales
time on
here.
that
So
That's a whole nother thing.
so yeah, definitely. And there are other styles of pale ales. I mean, we all know a British pale ale. I brewed a Belgian pale ale, which is a great beer, but it is a very it's the hops you use. It's the
Belgian pale ale is
Well,
not
that-
just
that-
a
well,
pale
that's
ale
yeast.
with Belgian yeast. It's a totally different animal.
Oh yeah.
And we can get into that one time because that was one of my favorite styles. But it's not
that beer.
really relevant to the American pale ale discussion because it's a totally different animal. It's not just a different yeast. So I think we've laid a good foundation here for what we're all going to brew. I'm really excited to taste what everyone's going to brew. We've got a week off after this. Then we've got a Final Gravity episode, and it'll be a week or two after that when we do our next episode. So by then, I expect that several of us will have ours ready to go. Mine's in the ferment. I'll probably be ready to keg in a week.
Mine will be
Hopefully-
oxidized by then, so
Hopefully mine
Macy will
will-
enjoy
yeah,
it.
it'll still have
That'll
some.
help balance. it.
Sandra and I will brew ours this week, and we're both using.
And I know Nigel and Greg are brewing theirs.
and they're using Norwegian yeast, I think, too. They're using the Cryo Havoc yeast, but we're using some Norwegian yeast, some of the Kvike yeast, so those should finish up pretty quick. Did you talk about what hops, Sandra, that you're going to use? Because I think you're going to go a little different than us.
Man,
Or have you changed your mind after our conversation?
Yeah, she's
No.
totally changed it.
maybe amounts, but
gonna use Cascade.
Centennial,
Cascade and Cascade.
El Dorado, and Sabro.
Okay, nice. And El Dorado's that's a hop that we've been using a lot on the homebrew level. Personally,
It's a good hop.
I love El Dorado.
Yeah, it's solid.
I think it pairs really well. You know, with Citra becoming expensive and hard to get, I think El Dorado paired with other stuff can give you a similar-esque flavor profile because Citra's hard to replace.
As long as you're not using it at like a lot. Like if you're using a whole lot of El Dorado, it can turn. It can go the other way. But it's a backup hop, like to support something else. It's a fantastic hop.
Well, and you guys see, you're saying that it reminds me of another hop that you guys have used, the Idaho 7.
Great hop.
And I think that's a hop that is great with other stuff.
Totally.
That you got to have something else to play off that Idaho 7.
We did a smash. It was not my favorite beer.
The hop was too all over the place. So
It to me, it almost, I don't know. We were talking about it, ironically, we're talking about it today. But I have like this almost onion kind of taste from it. It's a weird, when the beer is really, really fresh.
I think when it's all by itself, it carries more of that than
Yeah, totally.
it should.
So awesome.
All right.
We all got a bunch of different pale ales going. We would love to, for some of you listeners, maybe do your own pale ale. Let us know what you're doing.
Yeah,
Focus
send it in
on
for
that
a Final
balance.
Gravity episode,
Yeah.
and we'll talk about your whole recipe and your brew day notes and everything, and break it down with. I'd be really interested to have James Lalonde in, maybe for the episode where we taste all of ours.
Ooh, that's
know.
intimidating, man.
I don't know. The last
No,
beer
it
he
shouldn't
tasted
be
of mine,
intimidating.
he gave praise. So I'm
You don't
not
know-
You know
scared.
what? He's the least intimidating dude to give your beer. He's hesitant to criticize your beer. I'm
Well,
like, I
you're-
wish
you're
you would
right.
criticize my beer to my face.
Yeah,
No, I'm
Tell me
you're
what's
right.
wrong with it.
I'm just worried about the blind, blind comments. Oh, this one tastes like shit, and I just know it's going to be mine.
I'm
Why does it
beginning,
taste
I'm
like
beginning to
grass?
see why I have never tasted your beer before. You've got beer anxiety, don't you?
Yes, that's it, Brandon. I can't perform in front of you for some reason. I don't know why.
Speaking of beer anxiety, we have a beer somewhere that we brewed that we'll try later. That's kind of shit,
Excellent.
but
Oh, cool. That sounds great.
all right. So
All right.
thank you for listening to Come and Brew It. In future episodes, we are going to taste some of our pale ales as we've discussed, and have an exciting brewing competition that'll pit us against each other and ultimately ruin all of our friendships.
Listen up for this. I'm really excited about doing this.
This one I've really.
I'll be honest. I kind of stole the idea from the Brewing Network. I'm going to give them credit for it because I've been a Brewing Network fan for years and years. And when they did this on their show, I really loved listening to it. We're going to do a little bit different twist to it, but I think it's going to be a ton of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. So
yeah, we'll definitely be talking about that next episode.
Now, is this an open competition? Like you can brew
Yes.
whatever you want?
Well,
No.
We'll discuss that as we get closer
we'll
to
get
the
into that, but
competition.
no, the answer to that is no.
And it's going to be cutthroat. It's going to be nasty.
Well,
it
after-
might have me sleeping on the couch.
After the comments of I haven't tasted your beers
will.
and all that stuff, then now I've got to win.
There we go. All right, that's the correct response. What? Oh, you wanted me to read the rest?
Again, please be sure to check out our Patreon account at
patreon.com/Come
and Brew It Radio,
Come and Brew It Radio.
and help support the show.
Support the show.
We have $2, $5, $10, and $20
$5,
options
$10,
because
$20.
every little bit counts.
15,
Please, we
71.
want to
We'll
reward you while
you help
keeping the show going.
Eight
Get
point
involved
six
and
seven.
improve it.
In fact,
In fact,
Damn it, yeah,
we
I
will
was- in fact, we'll
reward.
literally reward a lucky
Literally.
Patreon with every live show and a
Every.
random drawing with almost every live
so
show.
remember Patreons, that your mission tonight to win a prize is to go on to Amazon to the what was it, casual panache?
The
casual
panache.
panache and leave a
Poker.
creative review, and you're going to get a shirt and a hat.
Screenshot it and email it to michaelm@texasbrewinginc.com.
Be respectful, but poke it hard.
I wonder if I can get like a 30-barrel version of that.
Just a big, huge.
For your giant igloo.
Gigantic piece of
Giant igloo,
red-hot piece
yeah.
of metal and just stick it in the fermenter.
Caramelize a 30-barrel fermenter.
Heat that bitch up to like white hot. Throw it in.
That's thinking
15,
big. That's
71.
thinking big, man.
All right. Thanks again for listening to Come and Brew It Radio. Be sure to share it with your friends on social media. Give us some ratings on iTunes and Stitcher. And send any ideas or comments to info@texasbrewing.com. You can also check in on the brew days of some of our guys at the Brew Focus Facebook page, which nobody keeps track of anymore. But it's at Brew with Stubby, at Brew with Brando,
Wrong.
at Brew with
Several of us post stuff on there all the time.
Nigel. Nigel does.
I do.
Maybe I don't follow Brew with Brando.
Yeah, maybe you don't. Maybe you're not
Follow
cool
Brew with
enough. I don't know.
Brando.
Brew with Mikey B, Brew with Chris, Brew with Greg, and Brew with Nigel. All right. Come and brew it.
Come and brew it.
Come and brew it.